All righty. We are live. We've got folks joining in now. We're at 22, 25. We'll be probably having folks joining in for the next minute or two at sort of an accelerated rate. So I'll just talk here awkwardly for another minute or so until we get started. My name's Dan. Very excited to have you joining here with Andrea from GitHub and my co-founder here, David, calling in from beautiful San Francisco, as you can see. Um, really, I just don't want you to see my basic ass apartment in the background, but I don't got a cool space like Andrea does there. Uh, but really glad to have you be joining. We're at 70 folks, so uh, we'll get started here in just a moment. I'm gonna actually ask you if you wouldn't mind in the chat, everybody who's here, where's everybody calling in from? We all in the U.S. or we got anybody calling in internationally? I'm actually calling in from Oakland. A little misleading there in the Bay, but the Bay can almost see the bridge here. So we got Brooklyn, we've got Oregon, Toronto. So we got some international. We got in Canada, couple folks from Canada, Paris. All right, we got France in the house. We've got Nova Scotia, Michigan. Danny, I'm from Michigan as well. We've got India, Nigeria, very cool. Lakewood, Colorado, San Diego, Iowa, more Nigeria, more folks from Colorado. We've got David's here in Berkeley. We've got Miami. Someone's joining Andrea there in Florida. John's in LA. We've got a lot of folks from Canada here. Very cool. Well, glad to have you all joining. Jennifer, hello from Alabama. Great to see you all. Thanks for sharing where you're calling in from. We're at 82, and the rate of increase has significantly declined. So we'll get started here. I'm going to share my screen and get us kicked off more formally. Just to make sure, I always like to make sure that I'm not just talking with a blank screen. Can everyone see? It should say leveling up your software engineering career. Yes. All right. Thank you, Danny, fellow Michigander, keeping me on track. All right. So real quick before we get started, we do offer a sign up for a Slack community that we have going. If that's something you'd be interested in, I'm going to launch a poll right now, or I just launched a poll. If that's something you'd be interested in, it's for job seeking software engineers. You can just say yes in there. If that's something you'd be interested in, we'll get you signed up for that. And otherwise, we'll continue on our merry way here. So welcome. We're going to get started here with just a quick overview of what we'll be covering. It'll be an intro to Outco, who we are. I think we're the lesser known entity here, GitHub. Hopefully everybody here knows GitHub, but if you don't, you will in just a moment. Then we're going to dive into the subject matter, leveling up your software engineering career. Then we'll do Q&A. We'll try to answer as many questions as we can, as thoughtfully as we can. If you have questions that come up in the meantime, there's a Q&A button rather than the chat. If you're looking to get a question answered, I would encourage you to put it in the Q&A. It keeps it organized. It makes it a lot easier for us to get to at the end, and we can try to get it answered at the end here. Little more about this session again. So questions at the end. I forgot I had this bullet, so I already did this. It's the Q&A. If you see little like C's or P3s, it's reminding me of something. Don't worry about it. And then, so what is Outco? So Outco, we're a software engineer career accelerator. So hopefully pretty relevant to the topic here at hand today. Founded over 5 years ago. This is something we're not new to. Been around the block. It's primarily CS fundamentals that we help folks level up on, as well as non-technical or interpersonal skills pieces. We've worked with over 2,200 engineers to date, of all seniority, of all backgrounds. So from all these companies, GitHub, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, all the recognizable ones, all the big universities, and then all the ones that might not be as recognizable, smaller boot camps, self-taught engineers, people from community colleges. Um, basically no matter where you learned or how you learned or what your objectives are, we've worked with engineers like you, so hopefully this content here today you'll find well-rounded and applicable to pretty much anybody who's here. One thing that makes us really different than any other organization that's out there is we put our success to be dependent upon your success, and maybe we can talk more about that at a different time, but it's something that really separates us from other orgs out there. And you can always check out our Yelp reviews. We're very highly rated. We do a lot of good work with good software engineers, with great staff here like Richie, Patty, here, and David as well. So the next poll I'm going to drop here real quick. Is if you'd like to learn more about Outco. Obviously this isn't about Outco, so if you'd like to learn more, we have info sessions pretty regularly. We've got the poll here. If you'd like to sign up for one, just pop it into the poll there, whichever day you'd like. If you got to consult your calendar, don't worry, that's going to be open for the duration of this, so just pop it into the poll. If you want to learn more about Outco, there's no obligation or anything. It's totally free, just like this. So a little bit more about this presentation. This information was all put together by engineers, L&D managers, recruiters from companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, Uber, all the big ones. And it's especially relevant to software engineers who are actively job seeking or considering a job change. My name's Dan, one of the co-founders here at Outco. Very grateful to be here with my co-founder, David. I don't know, David, if you want to say anything about yourself, you can.
Yeah, definitely. Welcome, everybody. Glad to be here. Joined in with Dan and Andrea here from GitHub. Just a quick bit about myself in terms of what I help out with at Outco. And in addition to helping out with back-end operations of the company, I'm very involved in the software engineering journey of folks that are going through the job search process. Specifically, I help out a lot with resume creation, resume rebuilding, really like working to get it so that you're getting a lot of traction in the job search, folks that want to speak with you, companies that want to speak with you. And then I help on the back end as well, the very beginning, the very end, back end with salary negotiation, usually a popular topic in terms of getting folks more money.
Nice. Helping folks to that next stage. David's being modest. He's worked with hundreds and hundreds of engineers on their resumes, coaching them through to the next stage of their career with great success. So he's truly a gem here. So thank you, David. And then Andrea, wanted to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself here if you'd like. We're excited to be here with you and with GitHub.
Thank you so much, Dan. It's my pleasure to be here with you and David. So currently, hi, I'm Andrea. I'm still going to be Andrea later, but I am a community program manager at GitHub. I have a bit of an unconventional path into my career in that I was a career changer late in life. So it's really exciting for me to be able to partner up with companies such as Outco because I know you're helping all developers from all levels. So that's really unique. Some of my experiences, I've worked for GitHub, I've worked for a Spanish tech company called Odilo. I worked for Amazon as a digital specialist, and I am a volunteer at an organization that helps veterans and military spouses transition into technology, and it's called Operation Code. That's a bit about myself. I am dialing in directly from Florida, where I live with my family, and I've been a remote worker for as long as I've been at GitHub. Always open to chat, so just look me up. If you have any questions, I'd love to connect with folks.
All right, thank you. And if you want to say anything about GitHub, just in case anybody has managed to make it into the software engineering world without learning about GitHub.
Yes, this is super important. So who do I work for? GitHub, what is this? So GitHub started in 2008 as a way to make it easier for developers, for all of you, to host and share your code. Now it's been obviously more than a decade, been acquired by Microsoft, and we have over 50 million developers, which is an outstanding number. Of course, we are also the home for open source. The most open source projects are hosted in our platform. And we have a very specific mission to accelerate human progress through developer collaboration. So creating a platform and a product that enables every one of you to do the best work you can, collaborate with the best people you can, and just, again, move forward together. So I'm thrilled to be a part of GitHub, and I hope that if you haven't created an account, you check it out. and come learn. There's a ton of resources free.
All right. Thank you so much, Andrea. I also want to give a call out. They're not in the slide deck, but really they should be. Patty Montoya. This event wouldn't be happening without Patty. She put this. This is sort of her thing. And Richie made this all happen. Put in all the pieces. The presentation that we're going to see here. So really big shout out to both of you. Thank you so much, and thank you everybody once again for being here. At 136 folks here, this is really exciting. So let's dive in. The job search and interview process is what we're all here to learn about. How to level up using the job search and interview process for leveling up your career. So to get us started here, we'll talk about just sort of a high level overview of the stages of the job search and interview process. You all know you have to apply. That's kind of like a duh thing. Where the resume, most folks, don't think it's important or kind of just gloss over it. There's a reason it's important. A big reason, or many reasons, I should say. And there's a great way that GitHub can be leveraged to help you on your resume and help you prepare for your job search. So we're going to talk about ways that we've learned here at Outco that a lot of our engineers have leveraged GitHub to help them level up in their career, and that this is applicable to senior engineers, to junior engineers, people just getting started, people considering getting into software engineering. It's applicable to the full scope, to everybody who might be here right now. In fact, real quick, I'd be kind of curious to hear in the chat, how many years of experience does everyone here have? If you wouldn't mind just popping in a number into the chat, would love to see. We've got 21 with Mukal. We've got about 1 for Nicole. We've got a handful of 1s and 2s, some 5s, some 10s. That's a Turing test, right? 2 months, 10 years, 0.5 years, 20 years, 8 years, 2.8. 8 months, 4 years, 2 years. So we've got a pretty wide spectrum here, from very senior to very start and everything in between. So that's a pretty great representation. I'd say it's also a representation of what we see in our program, and this material that we're going to be working through is very applicable to everybody here. So really great to see. So then we'll talk about a coaching call, and or we might actually not talk about that depending on time constraints. We're going potentially a little over here. Then we're going to talk about phone screen and how to make sure you set yourself up for success with a phone screen. And then there's the tech screen. This is sort of, people tend to get increasingly nervous the deeper we get into the funnel here. So we'll talk about how to make sure you're set up for success with each of these phases, then the on-site, or the fake on-site during COVID. And then we'll talk about the committee review, which is maybe only applicable to certain types of companies, and then negotiation. That's a whole thing all unto itself, but we'll give you some tips here on how to negotiate your way for the best possible offer as well. So we'll get started with the process with applying. This is speaking strictly just in terms of the interview process, and we're going to talk about how GitHub fits in here in just a minute here. So so first of all, a big question here is, like, when you're approaching a company, is, are you qualified? And with most companies, the answer is probably. Most companies that you're going to be applying to, especially like brand name companies, for instance, like if you want to get a job at GitHub, or certainly these other big box companies, they tend to be hiring at all levels, and things that you can do to help emphasize yourself as someone who's qualified, or build yourself to be someone who's qualified, is through projects, experience, and demonstrations of passion. So we're going to talk a little bit more about how to do those things. And again, this applies to every single person here, from junior to senior. in terms of how to help yourself be more qualified on paper. You know, especially the big companies, they're always hiring. We're pretty fortunate, all of us here, to be in tech or to be considering moving into tech. It's wise to move into tech because especially the big companies, they're always hiring, especially software engineers. Even in the depths of the pandemic back in May 2020, when you know, people were having a hard time getting jobs or getting laid off, the people we saw getting hired were software engineers at these big companies. So it's a really great place to be, and they hire at all levels. So you might be someone here who put in a donut in terms of the years of experience they have. You might be someone with 20 years, and they're hiring again at all levels. So it's a really great place to be. In terms of getting your foot in the door, so like getting started, you know, there's the standard application process. Usually it's like jobs dot whatever company you're applying to.com. Maybe they don't have their own portal set up and they're using some other portal like Hired or Monster. Or there's software engineer specific types of platforms that you might use. But typically you submit your resume via a public job board. And the thing is, more than 60% of resumes are received this way. But there's a kicker here that I'm going to touch on in just a second. So the majority, I want to emphasize, the majority of resumes are received through companies through their public job board. But there's this other process called the referral application process, and it's that old adage: it's not what you know, it's who you know. So through this, you're getting referred in through somebody at a company. You submit your resume through an employee at that company, and the thing is, they only get about 30% of the apps through the referral process, but it has a 3 times higher interview rate. So there's a tremendous, and you can see Andrea's, like, she knows, she's seen it happen on the back end. Maybe they're at GitHub. You know, it's real. That's a real a real thing, a real sort of advantage you can have. Over 60% of the hires are made through referrals. You'll see again that last bullet in that first point. More than 60% of resumes are received through their job board, but on the second, the very bottom bullet, more than 60% of the hires are made through referrals. So there's this complete disparity. They get most of their resumes through the job board. They make most of the hires through referrals. So if you can, something we teach here is called reverse recruiting. I can summarize it just as saying, you know, if you can try to network your way into developing a relationship, and a meaningful relationship, ideally not one that's just transactional, where you're legitimately, genuinely interested in getting to know somebody at that company, build a relationship, demonstrate that you'd be, you know, a good fit there, demonstrate that you have the skills, or at least the hunger to build the skills, and you know, get in on that referral track. And that alone can give you a huge leg up on your job search. And looking to move in. The resume, it's another key piece. We're going to jump into how GitHub can help you build your resume here in just a second, but it's obviously part of the application process. I'd venture to guess most people here only think about their resume as part of the application process, but it really matters at every single stage of the interview process. So I want to emphasize, this is something that follows you throughout the interview process. You know, you might get to the onsite, and at a company like GitHub, you know, they got a lot of applicants. These other big name companies, they get a lot of applicants that you're competing against, and they might solve the problems correctly just like you do, and the thing that might make you stand out is your resume. So we want to make sure your resume is really in top-notch shape here. So we're going to talk a little bit about your resume. You know, for these companies, why does it matter for them? It's a quick check. You know, are you qualified to work here or not? It's cheap to just say no at that point versus, you know, dragging you in, interviewing you, and then realizing you're not a good fit. So for them, this is sort of like a quick way of getting a check. It applies again at every single stage of the interview. So that's why this should really matter to you. So I would strongly encourage, you know, paying attention. I know resume tends to be like the snooze subject, like universally in life. But the idea is you want to make your resume one page, easily scannable. Most recruiters, and David, I know I'm just running with it here. So if you have anything you want to add in at any point here, feel free, but no worries if not. You want to make sure it's, you know, a keyword search for tech the relevant tech pieces, and ideally, if you can tailor it to the company that you're applying to, even better. But you definitely want to have everything in there that you're comfortable with. We'll show you some tricks to getting things in there that you might think you otherwise shouldn't feature in your resume. And you want to be using this acronym. This is actually an acronym that Google uses internally in terms of what they look for in the bullets of resumes that they're scanning. And they want to see the actions, the results, and the metrics that are applicable to a given bullet point in a resume. And it's a great way for you to be able to structure the bullet points as you're going through them, writing your resume. Most of you don't have the skill that David's got of blasting out lots of resumes, helping engineers build resumes. So the more of these kind of processes you can incorporate into your resume building, the better. Here's a quick example of a resume that we received of an applicant to our program, and this is what their resume looked like before. So they had their education right up at the top. You just put in 4 years. You've put in 4 years. You put in tens of thousands of dollars into education. You want to put it up at the top, right? And they've got their skills way down, buried at the bottom, with the experience kind of sandwiched in between. So what you want to have is have your skills first. Make sure that's right up at the top of your resume so that they know, okay, you've got the skills. Basically, they want to know, can you do the job? So if you've got your skills right up the top, make it really easy for them to find and identify that you can. Backing up the skills with your experience, maybe backing it up then with your education, and then projects. Again, we're going to get into how GitHub can really be leveraged strongly here for project development and helping strengthen your resume. Again, using ARM, the action, results, metrics for each bullet point. Going to give you a quick example of why that really matters here. So here's that same person's resume after. So here's the before, here's the after. Everyone who goes through our program, we help them do a total resume overhaul, and take a screenshot of this. Check it out. Use this template if you want to. We put their skills right up at the top. So you've got proficient, and here's the little secret here. You put exposure. Maybe you don't know Ruby on Rails. Maybe you don't know Python super well, but maybe you've tinkered around with it, built a little project before. Put it in there. They might be hiring someone who's looking, they're looking to fill a role that has that skill set, or maybe they considered it a nice to have, and that might bump you up. A lot of these companies, they use resume scanners, and you want to have the keywords loaded in there to really separate yourself or get you as qualified as possible. So the skill set right up at the top, backed up by ideally work experience is preferred. Then you've got your education, and then your project work sort of supporting down after that. So to talk about the ARM pieces, I did want to, so exposure, I just saw a question in there, good question. Exposure just means you've been exposed to it. It doesn't mean you're great at it. You might have even only just written a couple lines or a couple dozen lines of code in it. Maybe you've built a little project, but it's not like you're going to come in and say, hey, I could confidently come in and just start, writing this language or using this framework or whatever it is. So and please don't, if someone please don't expect me to see things in the chat. I just happened to look up and see that question. But the bullets, I do want to touch on this. It's real easy to lose track of the importance of the bullets. So here's the most important point here. If we look at the first bullet in the before section, you can see developed and deployed automation software for configuration testing of nationwide station racks, improving technician productivity by approximately 20%. So the thing they did well there, they've got the action, they've got the result, and they've got the metric. Here's the key about the metric though. The metric is it's not as much business oriented as it could be. So if we look at this first bullet in the after phase, optimized manual config searches by web scraping. I don't think it's a one-to-one with the first bullet. Configuration pages using a misspelling of Ruby on Rails and Nokogiri, removing the need for 800 hours of manual configuration searches. So the idea is you're painting a very vivid picture in the mind of the person who's potentially hiring you. And this applies, by the way, if you're looking to get a raise, a promotion. The way you can write your resume, the way you can talk about, the way you can describe the impact that you've made at a company really matters in terms of the number of hours you might have impacted on engineering time. If you reduce, as this person did, 800 hours off of the need for some engineer to go through and do configurations, manual update configuration searches, that's a lot of money that you're saving that hiring manager, and that's a big impact. They're thinking, wow, this is going to make me look really good if I hire this person or I keep this person on my team. They're adding a lot of value. So this matters not just at looking at new companies, but also at leveling up within the place you may be working right now. So so here's sort of a side-by-side. Again, we're trying to make it as easily scannable as possible. A lot of these people who are doing what's called sourcing at companies, they'll spend no more than 6 seconds on average looking at your resume. So you got to make it really easy for them to find what they're looking for. And we find that format on the right to be optimized for that. So let's talk about how you can use GitHub to make yourself best qualified. On paper, the resume is where we're going to focus. On the tech screen, these pieces can be helpful also in terms of making sure you're best prepared for the skill sets that you're going to need on tech screens or on sites, and you might be getting questions like, tell me about your most recent project. And what we're going to talk about right now is how you can use GitHub for building out really great projects that can help you stand out as a software engineer. And again, this applies equally to senior engineers as it does junior engineers. I really want to emphasize that. I'm gonna say why I keep emphasizing that. A lot of senior engineers think, well, I've already got the experience, or I'm senior, or whatever. Something that can make you stand out from all the rest of the engineers you're interviewing against is, again, demonstrating that passion by spending your free time building projects or contributing to open source projects. Leveraging great resources like GitHub. So you might build your own resume, building your resume portfolio. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. So again, it's relevant to senior engineers and junior engineers. Just wanted to emphasize that. This is the slide I thought I was on. So for building your resume using GitHub, you might get a question like, tell us about your background, your most recent project. And it's really important to be able to demonstrate that you've got this passion, that not only are you getting paid to do this, but when you go home, you're doing more of it. And do you have to be like literally living and breathing code and like not having a life and being an unhealthy computer zombie? No, definitely not. But if you've got a project that you're consistently contributing to, it can be really, again, help you stand out. It can help you strengthen technical points that you might want to strengthen in terms of the current language or skill set that you're using at your job. Maybe you're not using skills that you want to be growing at your current job, and strengthen them through project work. Working on a cool name, a well-known repo, or at a well-known company that's open source can help add legitimacy. You can put that company's logo or that project's name in your resume then, and engineers look at that stuff and they say, oh, you're contributing to that, so am I, or so's so and so, or I really respect that, or I use that tool. That's really cool that you're contributing to it. There's another fringe benefit that you might not think of. It's a great networking opportunity. We've had engineers come through our program who, in working on code through these open source projects, meet other engineers at those companies. Maybe that even leads into an interview. So there's a lot of great ways you can do what we're about to show you here. Leveraging GitHub to really help you level up. It also demonstrates that you can work in a production level code base if you're on the more junior side. That's a really important thing to demonstrate. For those of you who are coming out of boot camps or CS programs, you probably haven't worked in a code base of significant proportions. So being able to demonstrate that you can is something that's going to make you, again, stand out against other engineers at sort of your level, and that you understand like the process for pushing code, and getting it committed, getting it reviewed, doing code reviews, versus projects where everybody's just kind of pushing to master and it's kind of a mess. I don't know, David, if you have anything you want to add in at this point. I keep meaning to check in, and I'm just rolling here because I want to try to keep us in time here.
Just that, a lot of times you might get questions too from recruiters earlier on in the stage, like, tell me about your experience working on a production level code base. Obviously, like if it's open source, it's pseudo production level, but at the same time, especially if it's a more established project, there are going to be standards through which someone is actually able to be to like actually create pull request, actually create a commit. So it gives you exposure that you can then speak to, experience that you can then speak to in terms of technical points as they may come up in questions during the interview process.
Nice. All right, thank you, David. And then again, continuing on this path of building out your portfolio, your resume. You can start off making your own project, making your own repo. It should be something that you'd be proud of showcasing. You want to put pride into it. You want to build something that's well done. Ideally, I think for the more junior folks, something that you might have trouble making yourself stand out on is the complexity of a project. In your boot camp or at school, you may have just built what are called CRUD apps, the create, read, update, destroy, really basic, like to-do list apps. If you're getting started and that's what you got to do to level up, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you're thinking about like what to make yourself stand out on, maybe doing something with a little more complexity might be helpful. And that's when it can be really helpful to leverage GitHub for finding open source projects to contribute to, or projects that other people are building. There's a number of different ways that you can leverage GitHub or search GitHub for these types of projects. There's github.com/trending can be a popular of doing it. There's /explore, there's /topics, there's collections. All these are at the top of that page as well. If I weren't nervous about losing the presentation, I would fire this open and show it to you in real time. And something that you can do to speed it up or narrow it down even more. There's if you're nervous about not knowing, for those of you who aren't senior here, maybe you're like, I don't even know how to get started. GitHub, there's really great resources in GitHub that a lot of people have developed already, like creating your first pull request, your first repo, your first open source project. You can search those in GitHub and actually get a nice list of great content that will be able to really help you get your start on this type of a path here. You'll want to pick a language that you're familiar with, or if maybe you've got experience and you're looking to make a transition to a different language, different framework, different technology. Pick one that either you're familiar with or that you're interested in growing into. It's easiest to jump into projects that are well documented. So you'll want to search the README, do a kind of thorough analysis. You'll see if you're like at the end of reading the README, you don't know how to contribute, you don't know what the software does, then that's probably not the best. That might not be the best project for you to jump into unless you're really comfortable with that kind of thing. Trending, using the /trending can be a great way to have an opportunity to make a contribution that's faster and more significant. Those projects are kind of taking off. There's a lot of different ways, a lot of different moving pieces. A lot of things are in flux that you can jump into and maybe even make a more significant early level contribution to, since things are evolving so quickly. So David, anything you want to add in at this point here?
Not specifically, just it is a good tool if you're looking to, say, grow in a new framework. Say you're like looking to learn JavaScript developer, working more legacy systems. Now you want to learn React, for example, or Vue. Being able to look up repos where that's the primary framework or library that's being utilized, a chance for you to actually dive in, see what best practices actually look like in something such as that, so you can learn from it, you can potentially contribute to it, and then again gives you something specific to speak to as people start to ask you, if maybe you're applying for those types of jobs, what's your familiarity with X technology, something concrete you can point to rather than just saying I've been working on tutorial projects, for example.
Yes, that's a great point. It really makes you stand out, when you're saying like, I'm actively doing something that's being used, especially being used by people out there. That makes you stand out versus I'm working on this little project and nobody uses it because it's just living on my laptop or wherever it's living. Yeah. So thank you, David. All right. So, and one more piece I did just want to add in here, just verbally. Another piece that GitHub can be leveraged to do well on is, and there's obviously a lot more ways than just this, but you can also search for interview type of problems, and there's repos out there people put together, really thoughtfully put together, of like interview questions that they've got, and like how they work through them and how they prep. And there's a lot of really great resources if you search for interview type of questions or interview problems. leverage GitHub. It's a really great resource. So want to go through the rest of the interview process and how you can prep for each stage. So as we're moving along here, the phone screen, you all are reasonably familiar with this. You have an initial call with a recruiter, and it factors into your final decision. You want to emphasize, it's not just factoring into you getting to the next stage. They take notes at this stage, and those notes follow you throughout. So you might make it to the onsite, pass the onsite, and they're considering whether or not to make you an offer. And if they say, I really didn't, talking to this person was kind of awkward, versus someone you're competing against and they took the phone screen seriously, that might be the thing that keeps you from getting an offer. So anybody here who's like, oh, I made it to the onsite, I thought I did the problem right, why didn't I get an offer, might be because you didn't take the phone screen seriously. So again, we really encourage people take this seriously. At any given time, in any given moment in like an interview, what they're looking for is, can you do the job and do I want to work with you? So on the can you do the job side, there's the skills, the experience, the education, the learning ability, curiosity. And Andrea, I just realized I should have asked you if you had anything to add in on that last slide, since I was talking about GitHub. I really should have done that. How about we go back in time and do that real quick?
No worries at all. I think you hit all the points that I actually have made myself in presentations about how contributing to open source can help you level up in your career and have that influence and experience. One thing that I would add, and also it's applicable to contributing in GitHub as it is to just reaching out in any other platform, is that you have to put yourself out there and ask the question. So if you find a project that you're passionate about, let's say that it's not your primary language, but you want to learn. A lot of these maintainers are so taxed. The burden of maintainership is real. And yeah, they would love to have someone that's going to help them triage issues. They would love to have someone that's going to help them with logistics. And that can be a key entry point to any kind of project and building the relationships that are going to help you, put your name out there and stand out.
That's awesome to hear. Thank you. That's a really important angle that I would have completely missed. So thank you, Andrea, for adding that in too. Okay, cool. Well, so fast forwarding back into time here. My apologies, Andrea. I get into like present mode and I just start going with it. So my apologies here. But anyway, so like again, 2 questions: can you do the job, and would I want to work with you? There's like the attitude, the communication, the experience, the history, and curiosity. All these pieces factor in. These are the pieces that the interviewer, be it a recruiter, be it an engineering manager, they're all factoring in as you're moving through through each stage, but especially the phone screen here is sort of what they're trying to assess is, do I think this person can do the job? Would I or my team want to work with them? So the formula that is roughly used on phone screens, there's the coding analytic skills. There's this thing that was started at Google called general cognitive ability. Basically, it's like communication skills is a fancy way of saying it. Leadership potential. We're seeing a lot of companies, big companies like Amazon, they've put 50% of their interviewing is based around what they call these leadership skills. And you can be interviewing for any role, and 50% of the interview judgment is going to be around leadership potential. Other companies are now factoring that in. We're seeing a lot more of that coming into play, kind of copying them. There's a lot, maybe not copying, but taking inspiration, let's say. There's and basically they want to see, do you have a desire for future impact? And is there a potential return on investment here? They're investing in you. You have to remember, not just sort of you come there and working, but they're going to be putting resources in. So again, another big way, if you're leveraging GitHub and building out projects, they see that you're a proactive, interesting, curious person. You can take leadership and join in on these projects, can make a really big difference there. And then there's the culture fit. Unfortunately, realistically, it's also bias, or there's biases that creep in there. They might say it's like, do we want to work with you? And another phrase you might see is like, do you share our values? or how's your people communication skills. Obviously those things matter as well, but it can also be code language for ageism, sexism, racism. There's unfortunately these factors that do factor in. Do want to call them out. They are real, and there can be things that can be done to help combat that. But I just want to acknowledge that unfortunately that is part of the formula, even if it's not a formal part of the formula. And hopefully, if you're navigating the interview space, you do want to be looking for companies that are more cognizant. Biases are human. It's almost inevitable. But if we're making efforts to raise our awareness of our biases, and companies should be communicating that, and you should see it in their communications. That's a good sign, and might be something that you might want to keep an eye out for. So continuing on, if you're not familiar with this part of the process, it's a 15 to 30-minute phone call, non-technical. You'll be getting asked questions like, what percentage of your job now involves coding? By the way, if you're not employed right now, which, COVID's got a lot of people laid off, again, leveraging GitHub, building portfolio projects, you can say, well, I'm not employed right now, but I'm building this amazing project, or I'm contributing to this open source project here, and that can make you then seem like you're actively coding. You not even seem like you are actively coding. So you just went from saying I'm looking for a job, that's what I'm doing with my time, to I'm building software actively, proactively. So there's all these pieces. I'm gonna be speeding up just a tad here because I want to try to keep us on track here. But there's a variety of different questions you can get at that stage, and really the decision comes down to, again, your phone screen, your GCA performance. We'll share a rubric that we have for GCA, again, general cognitive ability. And there's a rubric that Google has internally that they use to assess on that. So it's real, and we'll share it with you after this. And then again, your resume follows you every stage throughout the process. So basically, leveraging these pieces to the best of your ability. One important point for the phone screens, as far as negotiation is concerned, basically they're gonna be trying to figure out what you're going to be asking for in terms of salaries. So how much salary can you earn is something that you're going to want to try to figure out, and have like an idea on. It's not just about how much you want to earn. We all want to be making, we all want to be making more money than we are. I don't think there's anybody here who isn't, but you have to kind of balance it against reality, right? So you want to investigate what the market rate is for your skills, and the years of experience you have, and the types of companies that you're going to be interviewing at, or that you're most interested in getting in at. We recommend anchoring on the high side. They can always tell you that's out of reach, we can't do that, and then you can always adjust down. But the recruiter's job is to try to get you as low as possible. So the negotiation, most people think about it as only happening at the very end of the process. It starts way back at the beginning here at the phone screen. So you want to be thinking about and have a number in mind when you go into a phone screen, and be ready. They're going to ask what kind of salary are you looking for, and you got to have a number ready to go, or else you're going to basically either they'll just decide for you, which it's going to be probably lower than you want, or you might say just kind of off the cuff something that isn't really well thought through, and you find out later you underpriced yourself and you didn't get as much as you possibly could have. So want to make sure you're being thoughtful and looking into this in advance. And again, try to keep in mind that you do have to balance what you want versus what might be in line with reality. I know that can be tricky to find out, but just want to point out the balance there. The technical screen, this is where people, again, their nerves start to creep up here. So why for them? Again, they're trying to do like incrementally investing more into you and figuring out if you're the right person for the job. And for you, again, it factors into your final decision. It's usually around 45 minutes or an hour, whatever they have it at, and it's usually a hard stop. And usually your code must be compilable by the end. There'll be generally some brief introductory question don't blow this question off. We've had people at big name companies get asked like, hey, what was it? Tell me about a time you had a trouble with a manager, and they blew the question off because they're like, well, this is the tech screen. I got to be ready for the tech, and they didn't really go that deep on it, and they didn't give a thorough answer, and the recruiter at the end said, we would have made you an offer had you knocked that question down instead of just kind of blowing it off. It didn't demonstrate leadership potential. So don't blow off any question you get in that stage. It really matters. Typically it's live coding. It's a data structure algorithm type of question. Generally, they're going to be looking for performance. They want to see that you can write performant code. It's going to be using some sort of IDE or IDE. In some cases, you might be using something like a Google Doc, which obviously isn't an IDE, but that's what you'll be writing the code in nevertheless. Minimal hints throughout. And again, that first question might be like, what are you working on right now? How much coding are you doing? What's the purpose, complexity of the most recent project you built? And then the technical question, which might be something like, given a list of integers, find the frequency of a target. And there's a lot of different questions they can ask. A lot of times they're going to be looking for no pseudocode at this stage. Something that we teach here that we'd recommend is ASCII diagramming. It can be a little tricky. Basically, it's like using just your TypeScript to draw out diagrams in whatever IDE you're working in, and that can be helpful for both your interviewer and you in terms of visualizing your problem solving process as you're going through these bits, as you're solving the problem out in real time. You want to determine your constraints, your edge cases. For instance, with the, given a list of integers, find the frequency of a target. One edge case you might want to ask, is the target going to be in the list of integers? These types of things matter. And again, generally speaking, your code must compile or be pretty darn close to compilable at the end. Again, you want to focus on performance, time, complexity. Start with the best solution that comes to mind. We have a phrase here that we jokingly say it, but it's real. Always be communicating. If I'm solving a problem right now and this is what you see as the interviewer, and you hear my fingers tapping on the keyboard, that's not a good experience for them. You're not demonstrating that you're a human at that point. So the idea is you always want to be communicating throughout. Iterate towards a solution with optimal performance as you're going through. A lot of times you'll get nested problems, so you'll think, oh, I can do this, and you'll solve it, and then they're going to kind of stretch the boundaries or change the constraints or add constraints that increase the complexity of the problem, and suddenly it's a whole new problem. There's a whole new dimension to it that you're not as sure about. So just be ready. You might be feeling really good and they might throw a curveball at you in terms of sort of a nested problem. Just be ready for that, and that's okay. But nevertheless, you want to, again, be trying to iterate towards a solution as quickly as you can. Again, the decision, the tech screen performance, did your code compile? Was it optimized? Were you easy to communicate? The phone screen performance, how did you perform relative to others? And again, here's your resume coming in as well as with your phone screen. So that brings us to the onsite. We're getting close here. I know we're going to be cutting it close on time, so I think it might be kind of a photo finish here. So with the onsite, again, the format, usually you'll be getting a couple of different onsites questions as you're working through, sometimes with different people as you're working through them, depending on the company. Sometimes, especially for the more senior folks, you'll be getting a system design type of question. So that's another piece. Again, even if you're looking to level up at your current company, they might have an interview process that says you got to go through the standard process. And that might include, solving a system design type of question. So you're going to want to be using another great thing, search GitHub, system design interview questions, find repos out there that can support you on that. Typically, especially sans COVID, there's a whiteboard involved in this stage. Here, it might be like pair programming through some sort of IDE or a virtual whiteboard, which can be even trickier to work through. generally speaking, you can pseudocode as a crutch at this point, but otherwise the rest of the parameters are pretty much the same as the text screen. Don't want to overdo it here. It's pretty much the same as what we described in the text screen there. So and the same thing if you're at a company that has a hiring committee, they're going to be factoring all these things as to whether or not to move you through to the committee, and no feedback is generally given at this stage. That's kind of the one of the most frustrating parts of interviewing is that you don't get feedback throughout it a lot of the times. So the hiring committee, real quick, for companies that do have it, basically they're deciding whether or not to give you an offer and which company which team to put you on. Again, they're going to be factoring in all the previous pieces, but here's where the internal referrals come in. An employee's opinion actually matters, and again, for the reasons that we described on their referral track, it's sort of like an extra point that you get, or another piece that adds to your candidacy or to your legitimacy as a candidate at that company. So again, want to take advantage of the referrals, because that's at the hiring committee is where it can make the difference. So as we saw, these are all the pieces that add into you getting to the hiring committee. So let's say you get an offer now and you want to negotiate. So this is where the most valuable suggestion we can make. We spend hours teaching negotiation, and even then we still do one-on-one coaching on negotiation when you get to this stage. So there's a lot to unpack here. We're going to try to summarize it in just one sort of key suggestion, which is to expand the top end of your funnel as much as possible. When I say that, it means you think about your job search as a funnel. At the very beginning, you're applying to lots of companies. A subset of those give you a phone screen, a subset of those that gave you a phone screen give you a text screen, a subset of those give you an on-site, and hopefully, a subset of those are giving you an offer. The more opportunities you create at the top of that funnel, the wider that funnel stays all the way through, and the more offers, ideally, the goal is to get multiple offers at the same time at the end. That gives you the opportunity to then assess different elements of a compensation package that a particular company might be giving you, and play one against the other, play one off the other, in order to optimize your opportunity there for a negotiation. David and Andrea, I'm sorry, I get on a roll here. I know I keep going, but if y'all have anything, David, I know you help with us with coaching on negotiations quite a lot. If there's anything you want to add in here.
Just, I mean, this is a whole topic in and of itself, but I mean, at the end of the day, while like the strongest strategy is to have multiple offers, and that's definitely part of the goal of interviewing actively with multiple companies at the same time, to create that opportunity, not only to just have a stronger process for negotiating, but also just being able to pick the company that you feel is going to be the best fit for yourself at the end of the job search. But, all that said, you don't have to have multiple offers to negotiate. And a lot of it just comes down to other points of leverage that might exist. That could be your interview performance, which you can try and evaluate based on just like what they've told you after the fact. Maybe they've said to you, a recruiter, I've never seen somebody go through the hiring committee quite as quickly as you have, which has been actual feedback we've had from candidates going through Outco. And like right there, that was the only offer they had, but like they had strong leverage in making an ask for more. They probably didn't want that person to walk away, right? So it could be, other like strong feedback. It could be lots of traction. Maybe there's a lot of people knocking on your door. One company moved faster than the other, letting them know, like, hey, if you want me, this is what you're gonna have to pay me. Otherwise, I'm going to talk to all these other folks. So there can be other things that are involved in other pieces of leverage that are involved in the negotiation process beyond multiple offers.
Cool. Thank you, David. All right. Well, so that's sort of the interview process in a nutshell. The job search and interview process, I guess it should say. You got to apply, use your resume. Again, using GitHub to help you build your resume. We skipped the coaching call for today because we're kind of short on time. The phone screen. We talked about that. The text screen, again, you're going to prepare for the phone screen, right? Because you see the value of it now. The text screen, again, you can also use GitHub to leverage GitHub to help you prep for your text screen, for your on-site. There's a lot of great resources here, and then the committee review and negotiation. So all that being said, again, if you'd like, sign up for an info session. If you'd like to learn more about Outco, again, we got the poll open there if you'd like to learn more. Otherwise, we're going to open it up to Q&A. And if you have anything you'd like to ask, and if you want to apply to Outco, you can apply to Outco too. So I'll stop my screen share here. And if anybody has, we've got questions in the Q&A, and if we want to open it up here. So one question at the top from Stacy, what is the balance? Oh, David, you're typing an answer. Do you want to, are you how far into your answer are you?
I mean, I can just verbally state it. I mean, the question is, what is the balance for hiring managers between getting the problem, quote unquote, right and understanding thinking and problem solving skills? And basically what I'm writing here is it's going to depend company by company. So for some organizations, it might need to be that you have to get the questions 100% correct, from both the actual steps through coding, and maybe they have some sort of optimal approach that's hitting on, what they feel to be the best time/space complexity balance, and there's a solution they're looking for there. And if you don't get it, then that's it. For other companies, and for most companies, there might be a couple questions they're trying to ask you, and there might be like a initial sort of easier question, which you do need to get 100% right, and then the follow-up question, which is going to be anywhere from somewhat more difficult to significantly more difficult. The expectation isn't necessarily that you get it completely right, but that you can clearly demonstrate your problem solving approach for tackling something that maybe is beyond your difficulty level at the moment, or maybe it's like close to it such that you're able to get at least working steps that if you had the time to code it out, you would be able to have an optimal solution there. That might be enough at that point. So it is company by company. Usually though, you need to have some form of working code at the end, especially if there's only one question you're getting asked.
Cool. So that sounds like that. I got your question answered there, Stacy. Thank you, David. How valuable is technical writing to landing a developer role? I don't know, David, do you have a sense for this?
Not specifically here.
Yeah. When you say technical writing, I'm not sure. That could mean a couple different things in my mind. I'm guessing you're not talking about writing code. You might be talking about like documentation. There's full-time jobs out there that are just technical writing. So I'm not entirely certain what you mean by that. Omoruru, I'm sorry, I'm totally not pronouncing your name right. Omomuro. I'm so sorry. But if you'd like to expand on that a little bit, happy to elaborate on that if we can. So let's see. Gaurav Jat, is the experience similar for a software developer hiring process? This was the software developer. If the differentiation you're trying to make is between software engineer and software developer, I'm not sure if that's the difference you're seeing here, but we use those terms interchangeably, software engineer, software developer. There shouldn't be any difference. They tend to be synonymous. Let me know if that was the question you were asking. Happy to answer it. If not, an anonymous attendee asked, I had a few tech interview coding sessions, but I was not able to finish the tests before 45 minutes. Would that be the reason why my interview process stopped at that point? I interviewed for a front-end developer role, but the coding sessions are all in data structures and algorithms. Yeah, and you might be thinking like, why as a front-end engineer do I got to be doing these? So it could be. It's hard to say without having been there. Maybe you weren't on the right track, and they could tell, and they just wanted to cut things short. It might be that the interviewer, that's their standard process, is you get 45 minutes and that's a filter point. If you don't solve it, that's just the way it is. And they get enough engineers interviewing, enough of them are going to make it through that filter point where that's just a filter point. It might not be fair, it might not be representative of your skill set. How often in software engineering are you on a 45-minute timeline to write a piece of software? Like, unless you contributed something to production and you're trying to fix it really fast, generally speaking, there's not that kind of pressure and that kind of you know, timeline to that. So let me know, Anonymous or David, I don't know if you have anything you want to add in there.
Just a lot of times, especially for time coding challenges, say it's like through HackerRank, for example, or through Carrot or through Codility or whatever the platform is they're choosing to use for time challenges. If you don't get, for example, 100% of the test cases correct, you're probably not going to move forward. It's not a guarantee, but for a lot of companies, that's more or less the criteria they're looking for to have you then move on to speaking to a recruiter if that's the step before it, or having a live, 45-minute to 60-minute technical screen with an engineer, if that's sort of the step after the recruiter call.
Okay, thank you, David. And Richie's pointing out, it looks like we're getting a lot of requests for the GCA rubric. That is in the chat. You should see it from Richie up above, and if not, I think he'll be popping it into the chat there right now. There it is. So there you go. You got it. Jennifer asked, and we got a lot of questions here. I don't know if we'll be able to get through them all. Andrea, how you doing? We're at the scheduled end time. How are you doing? Do you want to work through a couple more? Or do you want to wrap it up here?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
If folks feel like they can hang out for the next few minutes so that we can try and get a couple more, that's perfectly fine.
Okay. And I'm trying to see if there's any that are GitHub specific here. I don't think I'm seeing any just yet. So let's see. Okay, so we'll move back up. So let's see. We've got Jennifer asked, which projects are worth doing? Whoops. To showcase your skills to be noticeable. David, I feel like you might be best to jump in here, and Andrea, I don't know if you have any thoughts here as well.
I would say the projects worth doing to showcase your skills to be notable. At the end of the day, it's like trying to list out, what projects or experience that you have, and if you have a limited subset of projects, you're going to need to include all of it on your resume. But in terms of ones that might be most interesting, the idea would be trying to build out, like if it's maybe just for yourself, a product or an app that you wish existed that you start to work on, hack away on, so that you have something you can demonstrate there. Maybe that would be something that you could list out. Like, so trying to have something that's more like product focused rather than like tutorial focused through what Dan mentioned earlier, like to do apps would be most relevant. It could be looking to try and contribute to open source GitHub projects. That's something that would be relevant and worth talking about on your resume. Or it could even be thinking about how you might reach out to friends, family, acquaintances that have like talked to you before about having an app idea built, but they aren't engineers, and maybe it's just at building their app, right, as a means of putting together something interesting or relevant that you could then speak about on your resume.
Yeah, I'd like to add one more piece to that puzzle. I think you can also leverage what you're interested in, what kind of role in what company. So most of the big name companies and even smaller startups, they use some form of open source component in their code. Like there is, I will dare say that there isn't one single company that hasn't used a project that is based on open source. So if you're gunning for that company, then get into that. So if it's Facebook, let's take a look at React. If it's, just explore the avenues where you can start having your name be known by those maintainers, and they start, you can really prove your technical proficiency, even if it's not like one specific product set. So kind of focus the search. If you're gunning for a specific company, I know some people, that's their dream job, right? I want to be a Googler. I want to, maybe not Amazon, but, so just kind of focus on that.
That's a really, really great point. And that actually speaks to something that we teach, what we call our outcoders, the engineers who go through our program, is you want to try, what you're trying to do is get the interviewer to have in their mind, they're imagining you as being a fit in the company that they're hiring for. And what Andrea is just recommending there is exactly perfect for that. You're saying like, hey, I'm already building stuff for you. I'm already building stuff for that y'all are using. I'm just a natural fit here. Like that's a really, really great piece of advice. So thank you, Jennifer, for that question. Ruth, your question I think is close enough to the last question. I think we're gonna consider that's the advice we would have there, is what David and Andrea just outlined there. So hopefully that answered your question. Let us know if it didn't. Nicholas, you asked a question that sounds like it's about our program specifically. I'm going to encourage you to sign up for an info session. I don't want to take up everybody's time talking about our program here as much. Obviously I'd love to. So we'll recommend that gets answered either directly by us in the chat or go to an info session. Let's see. Vlad said, just an observation, too many tech companies' interview process is at least partially designed and implemented to make the interviewer feel smart and secure about the job they have. Interviewers ought to approach interviews with an attitude of curiosity and assessment rather than hierarchy and judgment. And I could not agree with you more than that. I think ideally our company wouldn't have to exist, right? Ideally, like the interview process would be something that brings out the best in people and helps interview on potential and strengths and help with growth. Instead, it's almost more of like a hazing process. So and I completely agree with you. All too often people's egos come in. I don't know if anyone saw the Stanford prisoner study where like the guards, just normal people, were given like a guard uniform, and they took on like this really authoritative tone and mistreated the other normal people who were taken in as like prisoners. It's just kind of taking on that authority gives you a different air, and it's unfortunate. It's almost just part of the process a lot of times. Again, if you want to be looking for companies that have that awareness and are striving to consistently check themselves, that can be hard to find though. I saw Andrea, it sounds like you're like you got some snaps going on that one. Yeah, definitely resonates a lot. And thank you for calling that out, Vlad. Definitely agree. Victoria asked, how do you strategically leverage offers against each other without coming across as shopping for offers? Great question. So David, first of all, do you have any thoughts on this? David does a lot with the negotiation side here. So if you have any thoughts on that.
I think it's expressing genuine interest in the company while you're still like asking to negotiate on the opportunity that's being presented to you. I think that's one of the biggest things, asking questions to them about the role beyond just like compensation details, but trying to learn more about the team you're going to be joining, trying to learn more about your manager, trying to learn more about like different project initiatives you'll be a part of. If you're doing that in addition to speaking to like other offers that you might have and like what their compensation details might look like, but still communicating that you're very much interested in the opportunity at hand and you want to see about figuring out how it might work, it's going to come across as genuine, because it very likely will be genuine, and that you're trying to evaluate and make the best decision for yourself and for your career.
Yeah. And I guess I don't really have too much to add to that. Again, I'm just going to end up repeating what David just said. So I think we'll just leave it at that answer. I don't know if Andrea has anything to answer or to add there. Well, we got time for one more question. We're going a little over here. So we'll answer one more question. Let's see. Florence, for the on-site interview, is there a chance that interviewers would give you questions on your knowledge of programming paradigms like OOP or functional programming, et cetera, or test you on design patterns as well? I can say right off the top of my head, absolutely. And they might not say that that's what they're interviewing on. They're not going to say like, here's an OOP question, but there are like absolutely questions that are geared at, it might not be just assessing you on that. It might be assessing you on several things, but like, OOP or functional, depending on the type of job or role you're interviewing for, design patterns absolutely can all factor into your assessment. I know, David, if you have anything you want to add in there.
Just yes, like object-oriented design definitely can be a process, especially during the on-site of or virtual on-site now of interview uh, cycle at a company. Functional programming, if it's a functional programming company, yes, that's probably going to be something that could potentially come up as well. And then I don't know if we addressed this earlier, but like system design, very much a prevalent and growing part of the on-site process for lots and lots of organizations. So they're going to be technical interviews beyond just like traditional data structures and algorithms, or more like practical, build me a component in X library, for example.
Okay. All right. Well, Andrea, I just realized you're on the East Coast, which means is it 7:40 for you?
I think it's wine o'clock. Yes, it's a bit late for me. Yeah, it's a bit late.
Love it. I think it's wine o'clock here too. It's 5 o'clock somewhere, right? So, all right. Well, it was great, really great to have you, Andrea. Is there anything you want to add in closing here?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to just give one quick shout out to Kunal Mandil. He asked a question about how you should use GitHub to showcase the project. And I feel like that's a topic in itself, especially now with the README page and so many things that you can do. So maybe we work together and put some content, maybe have another one of this and show how we can best explore that and leverage that for your job search, etc. Other than that, thank you so much, everyone. It's been amazing to get to share this.
Yeah, this was really fun, and we would love to do a deep dive on how to leverage GitHub, and there's a lot. Obviously, there's a ton that we could go into there, and that'd definitely be a lot of fun for sure. Andrea, did you say, was there an event that you wanted to? Was there something you wanted to?
Yeah, thank you so much. So tomorrow, we are going to be having a written AMA with Mike McQuay, who is the longest core maintainer of Homebrew. You probably use Homebrew at one point or another, and he's a fantastic engineer. He's a staff engineer at GitHub and has worked in so many different projects, has a lot of experience. So bring your questions, come on by. It'd be great to just, have some time with him and be very candid about what we ask. So come on by, join us.
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Andrea. Richie just popped the link into the chat for that event. This is all going to disappear in a couple seconds, so make sure you grab the link for that event. You're not going to want to miss it. That's a really great opportunity. You don't get to ask people like that anything very often, so very cool. All right. Well, thanks again, everybody. I think we're going to wrap it up there. You can keep the conversation going in the Slack group after this if you want. And otherwise, again, thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Richie. Thank you, David. Thank you, every single person here who attended. It really means a lot that you spent the time with us here this evening, or if you're in Paris, I don't know what time it is, but or in Nigeria. Thank you all so much, and hopefully we'll see everybody again soon. All right, take care.